Alright ladies and gents, welcome back to this week's Walk and Talk. Although you'll see we're not going to be walking today, we're going to be sat in the car. But it is beautiful. Let me just show you the view here a second. And it is ridiculously hot in the car today, but it's one of those catch-22s. If I turn the AC on, it comes over the audio, makes it really loud. If I open the windows, the wind blows through and shakes the car. So let's get the sunglasses on because it is bright and it is beautiful. So let's go over some of the big stories today then. And the biggest one is around, well, they're really tightening the net at the moment with the media in the US. Some of the stuff coming out is pretty unbelievable. So let's start with the big story then. The US is accusing Russia of interference now in the 2024 US election. So the Biden administration is accusing them of this interference, and this is as a result, they're calling it a mass propaganda campaign unlike anything seen since World War II, involving fake news sites, with the Justice Department seizing 32 internet domains. They are saying it is being used to spread misinformation, including negative polling of Biden, helping to push up Trump's approval rating. Two Russia-based employees of state-controlled media outlet RT were charged with conspiracy and money laundering for their role in a $10 million scheme to promote pro-Russian content aimed at what they say is creating divisions within the US electorate. And they're saying the main thing that these sites and a lot of the people who have been promoting this have been doing is reducing support for Ukraine, especially around sending weapons and aid to Ukraine. I mean, some of the stuff is somewhat laughable. They're saying that without this misinformation and propaganda campaign, that US voters would be heavily behind sending all of this aid. No, I don't think it would make a difference, in all honesty. So there has been this massive crackdown then on media overnight. I mean, this looks like it's going to be a real big one, so something to keep our eyes on. But this gets even deeper because the DOJ has now accused a number of conservative influencers. This includes Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, as well as loads and loads of other influencers of working with Tenet Media, which allegedly received $10 million, and I use the word allegedly because that's what it says here, from Russian state media RT as part of a huge propaganda campaign. Now, the Tenet Media founder, this is Lauren Chen, who is somewhat of an influencer herself, I think you could say, although somewhat left-wing. It's being claimed that she deceived, or at least this is what they're saying. They're saying that they were deceived by her. I mean, the whole thing is weird in the first place, if you ask me. And actually, I get these sort of requests all the time. I must get 3 or 4 every single day to promote something or other. And what do I always say? I think you'll know the answer to this. I always say, no, thank you. And the reason why is because, and again, this is so far out there that I would have never seen this come in. But the reason I don't promote any of this stuff is because you just never know what's going to happen. I learned a valuable lesson when I saw a lot of the finance influencers were promoting all the crypto channels and platforms. And then that all went really badly. There was a massive fraud and everything else. And it really hit those influencers hard. So I made the decision that I just wasn't going to get involved. Even sometimes, you know, they offer you huge amounts of money. I'll be honest here. I've been offered $20,000-$30,000 US dollars to do promotions before, and I just, you know, I just don't see the point in doing it. Sometimes if the money comes a little bit too easy, you've got to start asking questions. Whereas I actually make good income from my businesses, my investments, and also my courses that many of you have taken. There's a link in the description if you want to check them out and find out more about them. The same applies to a lot of these influencers. They have other streams of income. So why they take on board some of these promotional campaigns when you can obviously see there's sometimes risk with them, I'm not sure. So there was a 71-page affidavit that was issued here where it seized 32 internet domains which they say are either being used or being influenced by the Russian media, and a lot of the YouTubers have actually come out and said that they are victims themselves because they didn't know where the money was coming from. But again, I think you just got to bring it back to this same point. If you're not sure and you've got any doubts, don't get involved in the first place. That would be my philosophy with this. So it talks about a lot of the objectives of this campaign then. It was called the Good Old USA Project, apparently. It says that the objective was to boost the percentage of Americans who believe the US is doing way too much to support Ukraine, and it was also to lower Biden's confidence rating to at least 29% in the lead up to the November elections. This is what the document said. Well, his approval rating dropped anyway. I don't think anything was going to save him. And really, can you say that people don't want to send aid and everything else to Ukraine and weapons and spending all this money, trillions of dollars? Can you really say that's because of a Russian misinformation campaign? I don't think so. I think people can see the writing on the wall. They're just not happy with everything that's going on, where people are getting taxed like crazy. They're losing a lot of their living expenses. The middle class is shrinking. And yet all of this money is being sent overseas. I think the writing's on the wall. I don't think it's anything to do with this campaign. And this could be a double bluff as well, is what I'm thinking with this whole thing. It also says that X, formerly Twitter, was used to spread this misinformation and infiltrate society. So again, is that a coincidence? Is this another sort of hit or attack on X, where you didn't used to see any of this when it was Twitter, when it was a left-wing platform, but now it's swung over to the right? You're seeing a lot of these attacks against X. But feel free to drop in the comments what you think. Now, another article's come out as well today. Iran emerges as a top disinformation threat in the US presidential race. With a flurry of hacks and fake website, Iran has intensified its efforts to discredit American democracy and tip the race against former President Trump, is what the article here says. It also goes on to say that they are doing this under the shadow of Russian and Chinese interference who want a Harris presidency. So this is where it gets really confusing. The article makes it think, or makes it out as if they're doing this against Trump, but then you read into it and it says that actually they want Trump in power. So, you know, what is it? It doesn't really make much sense. And I think what's really going on here is that they're trying to confuse the general populace. That's what I'm seeing. They're trying to confuse the general populace to such a strong extent that they become somewhat, not even confused, but paralyzed by indecision. And then the media sort of rushes in and says, hey, don't worry, we'll help you out here. We'll tell you how to vote. And even some of these articles just made me laugh today. You wouldn't believe some of the headlines. Harris leaves Trump in the dust as she takes key swing states. Really? Really? I'm not convinced. Harris leads Trump with incredibly wide margin, polls state. Trump loses traction against Harris, could struggle to catch up. Harris 54%, Trump 42%. See, I even think that they're making these polls up now, and they are actually polling locations which are very friendly to Harris. That is what I see. You know, one thing I like about TikTok, even though I know some of you don't like TikTok, but one thing that I do like about TikTok is that people go out on the street and they do it in different areas. You know, California, they do it in Texas, they do it in all sorts of states. And they go up to people and they, with the mic, and they say, Harris or Trump? They have the person say it. And you hear overwhelmingly that it looks as though people are voting for Trump. And even the VP pick, so this is Harris's VP pick, Waltz, there's a picture, you can see this picture online of his massive extended family saying that wearing Trump shirts, and these are new t-shirts. And it's not just that. I think we're seeing a lot more. See, they don't call it interference. They call it election promotion. So there's all sorts of other things going on, such as Amazon's Alexa. There's a viral video where a lady asks Amazon's Alexa, they say, Alexa, why should I vote for Trump? And it says, I'm not allowed to get involved in the election and things like that. And then it says, okay, Alexa, why should I vote for Harris? And it says, and it just goes on this massive thing about why she should vote for Harris. Now, there's another related article, and this came out of RMX, and this is about Germany's AfD party. So this is the Alternative for Deutschland party. And there's a big investigation going on over a software error with the voting machine, which meant the AfD lost a seat, which was key because it allowed them to block decisions in Parliament. So the co-leader is calling for an end to mail-in voting as well, citing concerns over security and potential manipulation, and they want tighter controls over the election. Now, there's an update here. It says that after a review, the state election management corrected the allocation of seats. So it looks like there was an error and it was legitimate in the first place. And if you read some of the comments online, if you read the X post, it is just a barrage. It's just an absolute barrage of negative comments about this. Now over to the Ukraine-Russia side then, and Russia has responded with a massive missile and drone strike on Ukraine. It's absolutely huge, damage over 50 buildings. It's one of the largest attacks since the conflict began, and one of the closest to Poland. This is the other big one at the moment. Poland scrambled fighter jets, with officials suggesting potential action if missiles enter the Polish airspace. And the Russian attack on the military academy killed 51 people. They're calling it one of the deadliest attacks since October of 2023. Zelensky has vowed retaliation and is asking for even more air defense support. But the Russian foreign minister, this is Sergei Lavrov, he's warning the US against crossing Russia's red lines on Ukraine, stating that the US has lost its sense of mutual restraint, which could lead to dangerous consequences. Putin has also come out and remarked on the supply of the F-16 jets to Ukraine and said it's not going to make any difference. It won't change the military situation, but will only extend the conflict longer. He's also implied that these jets will face the same fate as other Western supplied equipment. Now let's move over to job openings a second here then. So US job openings fell to the lowest level since January of 2021. And the U6 unemployment rate, which is the one they should really use but they don't like using, the U6 unemployment rate is now at 8.4% for the US. But the U3, which is their official rate, is only at 4.3%. So I always take the U6 rate because it's more accurate. So that is at 8.4%. And also, I talked about this in the monthly macro video on Patreon quite heavily, but they're really manipulating the numbers at the moment. 10 of the 12 last months of job number reportings, they've actually gone back and revised the numbers down. So let's say you say, oh, X amount of jobs, 1 million jobs or whatever. I mean, depends on the country. And then later on, 6 months later, you go, actually, it was only 500,000. You revise it down. Basically, that's what the US Labour Department have been doing. They've revised it down 10 out of the last 12 months. And it's obvious why they're doing that. It's to make the economy look stronger than it actually is. And they may have also overestimated the number of Americans working by anywhere from 500,000 all the way up to 1 million. So again, this is bad for the economy. Harris has just come out and laid out another election pledge then. She's calling for rises of the capital gains tax, but she says it's less than Biden. The current rate is 20%, and Biden's proposed raising it to almost 40%, so almost doubling it. There's also an additional 3.8% investment tax for those with high incomes, and Biden suggested raising this to 5%, producing a potential top rate of 44.6%. However, Harris is now calling for a 28% rate, so an 8% rate, which is still a lot. That is a huge, huge rise. And she said that this is so that it ensures everyone pays their fair share in the economy for a more equitable society. Don't we love that word, especially when it's used incorrectly? It's not really going to make any difference at all to society by increasing the capital gains tax rate, because it doesn't go where you would think it goes anyway. And remember, the US doesn't need to tax you. They don't need to tax you because they can just print money. And also, I mean, let's address the elephant in the room here. Why do you need... Well, I think we just did with the fact they can print money. But the main thing that they need to be doing is just stop sending money all around the world, because that's what they're doing. They're just constantly sending money all over the world when you can use that money for your own people, for your own infrastructure. So, I mean, I think most people are smart enough to see it doesn't make sense anyway. And then the last one, we've got the weird and wonderful story of the week. After being told for years that geoengineering was a conspiracy theory by right-wingers and all this other stuff, it's now all over the mainstream media. The Financial Times reports geoengineering is worth the risk, provided we regulate it properly. So they're predominantly talking about SRM, which is solar radiation modification. And they said that this can help to reduce temperatures around the world, but it carries risk like disrupting weather patterns, harming the ozone layer, and causing acid rain, without actually addressing the root issue of GHG, which is your greenhouse gas emissions. The SRM requires a global governance framework, is what they're talking about. And they said that next year's UN Environment Assembly-7 and COP30, this will offer the right opportunities for these policies. And it just makes me wonder, when we've talked a lot on the channel, and again, we have to use code words on YouTube here, but when we've talked about these massive floods, and we've talked about what happened in Dubai and some of these other areas, and how we're seeing, you know, these extreme patterns emerging, and we were always told that it was nothing to do with modification and that they haven't been doing it, and now they're coming out and saying that actually they have been doing it. And you've got to ask, how much of some of the events we've seen is down to this modification? That is the question that I would ask, and what I'll leave you with today. So thanks so much for being online here. Remember to check out the courses if you think they would benefit you in any way. And apart from that, take care, God bless, and I'll see you on the next video.